Now it's time for today's perspective. And arbitrary detentions, enforced disappearances, torture, denial of any kind of fair trial. They're just some of the situations faced by Ukrainians who live in parts of Ukraine currently occupied by Russia. Now, they are some of the situations faced not necessarily by soldiers, just ordinary people whose lives have been turned upside down. Well, one organisation doing its best to lift the lid on what is being done behind closed doors is the Ukrainian NGO, the Media Initiative for Human Rights. And Lyubov Smachylo is head of its analytical department, joins me now here on set. Thanks very much for coming in and talking to us. You've got a major report coming out in a week's time on this very issue. I know you can't give it all away, but just give us an idea of some of the cases, some of the situations that we're talking about here.
Yes, so the report will be on the denying of a fair trial for Ukrainian civilians and prisoners of war who are in Russian captivity. Our organization, we have been documenting war crimes and other international crimes committed against Ukrainians since 2016, but since the full-scale invasion started, of course, this case has increased. So the main topic of our work are enforced disappearances, arbitrary detention, violations of prisoners of war rights. And so when we started document these crimes, first it was enforced disappearances and arbitrary detention. Then we saw that these people, civilians, were tortured, placed in the places of detention. Then they were transferred to the Russian Federation and put it in pre-trial detention centers. And now we're on a stage where fabricated criminal cases are started against them and also against prisoners of war who are in Russian captivity. So this report will be a comprehensive research on these criminal cases. A group of experts we did a huge research on this. We had more than 600 criminal cases against civilians and prisoners of war.
How do you go about doing that research? Because obviously it's happening in Russian-controlled territory.
Yes, this is a very big problem because these trials are happening in temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine and in the Russian Federation. So we had monitors who did this monitoring physically in Crimea and in the territory of the Russian Federation, but in other occupied territories it was very difficult to have this access to these cards, and now Russian Federation started to make it close to public, so it was very difficult to have this information. We also monitored public open resources, so some media, but of course it's Russian media, and also in our report we mentioned this, how Russian media, independent or state-owned, how they label these people, civilians and prisoners of war, as criminals before even they are charged and they have their verdict.
So why do you think Russia uses these methods? I mean, is it to keep a very, very tight control on the people there, to use fear, if you like?
Yes, of course. So it made to control these territories, to show that we're here and you need to be okay with this occupation. You cannot oppose it. So basically, they persecute every civilian who is opposed to Russian occupation, actively or even passively. So basically we think, and we try to prove it, and also Commission of Inquiry, UN Commission of Inquiry on Ukrainian situation, they already said that enforced disappearances and arbitrary detention can amount to crime against humanity. So we think that they persecute the civilians. For the prisoners of war, it more denying of a fair trial is more about war crime, but basically it's yes to keep under threats all these people in occupied territories of Ukraine and show that we're here and we will persecute everyone who is not good with the Russian occupation.
There's another report you produced as well. It's called You're Loyal to Ukraine, Are You a Nazi? Obviously designed to counter Vladimir Putin's claim that Ukraine is run by Nazis. Tell us about that.
Yes, so it was a previous report before this report on a denying of a fair trial, and in this report basically we, because our organization, we are doing in-depth interviews with victims and survivors. So we saw the same patterns in different interviews, and we saw that in different regions of Ukraine that are under occupation of the Russian Federation, different military units did the same scenario of arrest of civilian, of persecution, of interrogation, the same scenario of torture, and now the same fabricated criminal cases. This actually proves that this is a state policy of the Russian Federation. It's not just a mistake of some military units in Bucha. No, this was a state policy, and that's what they did. They are continue doing this in occupied territories of Ukraine.
And the people that you hear about and the people that you talk to, are you able to help any of them, or is it very, very difficult? Because obviously they're in Russian-controlled territory.
It's very difficult because, first of all, for their security, we cannot reach them directly and have constant contact with them. Those people who could escape the occupation and they are now in the under controlled territories of Ukraine, they can share their testimonies, tell us how it is live under Russian occupation, but a lot of them, they have still relatives in these territories, so we try to be really because for them it's very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Finally, I mean, we've got the US obviously now heading these negotiations in Riyadh. I mean, it seems unlikely that areas like Crimea, like the east of Ukraine, would ever be handed back to Ukraine as part of those negotiations. It must be very, very traumatic for people who are living in these areas to hear the news that comes out from the talks.
Yes, because we have already new generations in these territories. Some of territories are occupied since 2014, so we have children born there, and it's very difficult actually to accept this. I don't think that Ukrainians want to accept this because yes, we have this combat for all of our territories and for our people, because we're talking about people. It's not only territories. 18% of Ukrainian territories are under occupation, but it means people living there, and their rights are violated there.
Good to have you with us on the programme today. Thanks very much for coming in. Lyubov Smachylo, head of the analytical department for the Media Initiative for Human Rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.